Today we will be doing the handover of a facsimile reproduction of a 17th century document which belonged to this area. Last year we gave a facsimile to the head town of Santa Caterina Ixtepeji. So this day was the day in which we agreed to give the reproduction to this subject town of Ixtepeji. So that's the reason why we try to combine these things, so you can also see some of the, let's say, real stuff going on. In fact, that's also the reason why you would see the excavations of the tombs, because that's a project that we are also supporting and financing. And with the term we, I refer to specifically a foundation in Oaxaca, which is the Harpelu Foundation, which is also the space at and this foundation has several, it's a very large, it's in fact Mexico's largest philanthropical organization. It has several areas in which it works, but within the state of Oaxaca, it specializes in the profile of historical patrimony. And specifically, the foundation works with old documents, libraries, historical buildings, historical art, archaeology, indigenous languages, all kinds of tangible and intangible historical patrimony, specifically of Oaxaca. In other areas, and on the whole in Mexico, for example, it works on education, health, sports, etc. But in Oaxaca it has this very special profile, and that's because the founders have a very special relation with Oaxaca. So, what the project here in Nexicho consists of several actions that are designed together with the community on the excavations of several tombs, and that came about because there is one really, really important and spectacular tomb which was found a short time ago. It's the only very richly painted tomb of the post-classic period in Mesoamerica that we know of. The paintings are in an incredible state of preservation, but you hardly dare to breathe inside. It's so fragile. The state is so fragile that the first thing we need to do was to make sure that these paintings were preserved. So that introduced the archaeological component of the project. That's why the National Institute of Anthropology is doing the excavations. The archaeologists are not ours, the official anthropologists of the National Institute of Anthropology. And this discovery of the tomb is connected to, or the work on the tomb is connected to the presentation of this document which showed up 3 years ago in Milwaukee, but which was originally from this area. So for the people here in the area, it's also a big surprise to know that there is this document from the area about which we will be talking in this presentation. This is the English version of a Spanish presentation that we will do here at night. When you are already back in Oaxaca, we will be handing over the Reco and giving the Spanish version of this talk to town.
You understand?
Yeah. So in 2012, in the library of the American Society of Geographical Society.
Bas, die kant op praten.
Sorry. In the library of the American Geographical Society, which now is in Milwaukee, which formerly was in the city of New York, part of the complex in the Upper Manhattan of the R.C. Huntington buildings, with the Hispanic Society is still there. On 56th Street, I think it is. The collection of this large institute, which basically tries to reunite all kinds of maps of all over the world. It's one of the largest map collections in the US. Was moved to Milwaukee almost 3 decades ago. The University of Milwaukee, the State University of Milwaukee, received the collection. It's now part of the university libraries of the University of Milwaukee, but it still is a special collection of the American Geographical Society. Now, the interesting thing is that when they moved this collection, They moved everything. They also moved some of the furniture that belonged to the library, etc. And among the furniture that was moved to the library is a small cabinet at the back, which was at the library at least since 1917, I guess. And so in 2012, the leading director of the library, Christopher Baruch, which is the guy standing over here, with a little bit of a sheepish laugh because it was really very strange discovery, decided cleaning out the office and opened up this cabinet, and behold, in a drawer was a map which was lost for over 100 years. And it was just forgotten. It was just in the cabinet. And they made the move from New York to Milwaukee here. Nobody knew about it until 3 years ago. Now, so they opened up this document. This was rolled up. They opened up the document. They had no idea what it was, nor where it came from, or if it was anything important. But fortunately, a professor of the University of Milwaukee was present, Ames McGinnis, professor of Latin American history, and he said, well, I think we should look into this, because this looks like an important document. I have a colleague, which is Laura Matthew of Marquette University in Milwaukee. He called her up. She knows a little bit more about Mesoamerica. She looked at the thing and said, I think this is a Mesoamerican painting from the colonial period. I think this is a very important document. I don't know where it comes from, but I do have colleagues in Mexico who may be able to tell where it comes from. So she sent a mail to Michel. And when Michel saw the pictures, he fell off his chair. Because we know what this document was. It was a document which we already knew something about.
Oh.
To start off with the story what this document is, it's maybe interesting to see where it comes from, what is the tradition, why it's important, what does it represent. We are at this moment in the area of the Zapotecs. There are 15 recognized languages in Oaxaca, spoken in Oaxaca. It's an interesting comparison. Oaxaca is the size of Indiana, the state of Indiana. So imagine that within the area of the state of Indiana, you have 15 different languages spoken. Language groups, in fact, because only Zapotec divides in at least 8 different languages. These 15 language groups belong to 5 language families. There's more language families than there are in Europe. While the country, the state of Oaxaca is as big as Portugal. Portugal and Indiana, the same surface. So in an area as large as Indiana or Portugal, there is more linguistic diversity than in the whole of Europe. In fact, we are in one of the areas with the highest linguistic diversity in the world. One of the large, important groups in the history of this area were the Zapotecs. These are Zapotec ladies of today, of different areas of the isthmus, the beautiful clothes of the fiestas, the vegas in the isthmus, or the Pialana women in the market of Tlacolula on Sunday. Different areas, but on a large southwestern area of Oaxaca, which is occupied by Zapotec-speaking people. Theirs is the ruins of Montalban, which are very important because they represent the first state that was established in Mesoamerica. Around 500 BC, the Zapotecs of the Central Valleys founded the city of Montalban. These are the valleys of Oaxaca, around the city of Oaxaca, and here you see the site of Montalban, which was the biggest city for a long time in Mesoamerica. It was also a very important place for writing because it's the area where the first Zapotec hieroglyphs were developed, which are the first examples of writing in the Americas. Today, there are about 400,000 speakers of different Zapotec languages still. Their heartland seems to have been the Central Valleys. The move into the isthmus, the southern part of Oaxaca, seems to have been a much later movement into the area. Now, the famous art of Montalban Zapotecs, only a few years ago, I think it was about 4 years ago, a new tomb was found in an area of Montalban which had not been excavated until then. It's a project that was founded by the Harvard Foundation, by the way. And within this tomb, this urn was found, which is one of the finest examples of Ixtepeji that ceramic art ever to be discovered. Especially the very brilliant paintings. Normally, if you go to the museum, you'll see these rather grey Ixtepeji urns. But this gives you an idea of what these urns were when all the color was still on them. It's very bright colors. So
that was at some right?
That was an Atsonga.
They went to both sides.
Good, okay. So Atsonga is a late part of the Montalbano, I think. In the latest phase of Montalbano, two families move out and instead this is the Atsonga. The area where we are in is significant on the continental level. This is the city of Oaxaca, but just southeast of the city of Oaxaca, here, we have a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's a couple of caves near the city of Isla, which contains the earliest remains of agriculture in the Americas. Squash seeds, selected squash seeds of 10,000 years ago, and corn appearing 6,500 years ago. Between the squash seeds and the corn, we have the appearance of the beans. After the corn, we have chile, we have aguacate. So avocado is chile, corn, beans, and squash seeds are one of the oldest agricultural remains. This is probably, this domestication of the first domestication of plants in the Americas was very probably a success of the ancestors of today's Ixtepeji. We are pretty sure today that this process was done by speakers of pre-Otomangue, which is it's a reconstructed language which was supposed to be spoken in the areas around the city of Oaxaca, all this area here, about 10,000 years ago. And many of today's languages in Oaxaca, but also some of the languages of Chiapas, some languages in Puebla, and even north of Mexico City, belong to this large family, which is like Indo-European. So it's like all these related languages that go back to one original language that was spoken thousands of years ago. Zapotec, Mixtec, Mazatec, Huicatec, Chinantec, and Musco, they're all Otomangan languages. And they are recognizable because they're all tonal languages. So in all these languages, the pitch in which you pronounce a syllable is crucial for the meaning of the word. Not only the sound, so it's not only what we do in English or Dutch or Spanish, that we pronounce sounds. The pitch is so important that in Mazatec, for example, you can whistle the language and still understand what's being meant. Because you just whistle the pitch with the syllables, and that's enough. So the pitch is at least as important as the sound which is pronounced. So we are very close, very close. This is a road that we took up into the mountains. Really is Ixtepeji. Nexicho is very close by. So we are really in the heart area of the oldest agricultural evidence. This is a little bit to introduce where we are and what the meaning of this, the importance of the area is today. Now, what did we know about this strange document that appeared in 2012 in Milwaukee? In 1956, a local professor here of the mountains we are in, Rosendo Perez Garcia, he was from Islam, which is a town a little more than half an hour further down the road, wrote a book, La Sierra Juarez, which is the mountains where we are now. And at that time, he was able to interview some elderly people in Ixtepeji who told him that they remember that before the Mexican Revolution, they had a large scroll in their town with the history of the foundation of it. So this is the English translation of what he wrote in 1956 based on these interviews. Distinguished persons of the town tell us that the municipal archive held in the beginning of the 20th century a codex, so that's a strip. Codex is what they put up here, the screen. Made of deer skin, then about 6 to 8 meters long, and the sizes, they were a little lost after more than half a century later. The sizes of it exaggerated, but anyway, by 1 meter wide. The hieroglyphs explain the distribution of lands by Coquilai. They tell that at the time the current town of Vladislav was designated, they had towns of lands in the valley, they had towns in the mountains, etc. They said that between 1908 and 1911, when a manager called Santiago was the major, and surely in order to, the mayor, sorry, was mayor, and surely in order to define the land, so to justify the defining line, this man took the said codex to Oaxaca to hand it over to his lawyer, Mr. Don Jose Luis Jimenez. And they said that this man, realizing his value, sold it to the German consul for 35,000 pesos, with which this important document disappeared, being one of the causes of the revolution in 1912. This town, this area suffered very severely in the revolution. Especially Ixtepeji, the head town, was so heavily involved in fighting that it was for 90 years completely abandoned. All people moved out. The church was burned down. They tried to dynamite the church. It meant to destroy it. But even if you go today, you will see that all religious art is destroyed. And you can see that all the stonework is burst apart by the fire. It was a very, very aggressive moment. But just before that, in these years, apparently just before the problem broke out, the local mayor sold the codex. And then there's this other interesting information. In another document that was preserved for many years, and we now know it wasn't preserved because it probably was destroyed, the town was burned down, houses were torn down, people killed, moved out. In the municipal archive of this town, it was said that Lord Coquelin, having been invited by Hernán Cortés to destroy the Mexicans, accepted the call to present Ventel the siege of Mexico City, the 200 men, of which only 20 years could return. He had managed to put Cortés on the throne of Moctezuma. That's quite some achievement to boast of. Because of these merits, the Conquistador confirmed the title of Lord of 40 towns on the sons of Coquelin, who had baptism to the name Don Juan Juárez Diego Gonzaga. That sounds like a double name because we Juan Juárez and then Diego Gonzaga. Combining two names. And then there's another source, what we already knew as well, a 19th century and early 20th century Oaxacan historian, extremely interesting person, Don Manuel Martínez Garcia. He, during his life, collected copies of documents, everything he could get his